Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. Okay, I have a confession to make, and that is that I have a problem. There is a word that I have started using. I have adopted it into my language, into my vocabulary, and I am very disturbed and ashamed. And it's not a word that I want to be using ever, or at least not as much as I have been as of late. And that is, well, if you looked at the title of the episode, you already know. It's the C word. Gasp. I have lately been talking about content. What? Not the C word you were expecting? Oh, content. Content creator, content creation, create content. You know, recently I was in New York City working for a client on their show, Key Change. I was walking down the street in the Broadway Theater District in the evening on my way home from recording, and this group of lively, energetic, excited 20-something-year-old guys was walking down the street just a few paces ahead of me, and they were like totally high on the New York life, as one typically is on a weekend in New York City when you don't live there. They were just in their element, and I was overhearing part of their conversation, and they were like, dude, New York is so awesome. Like, we're totally going to live here. Oh my God. Yeah, we're going to become content creators and get a loft and live downtown, and it's going to be lit. Now, I'm not making this up, and I am not exaggerating. That is literally what they said. And it is burned into my mind in that moment, not because, these 20-year-old guys weren't necessarily all that remarkable, and not because it had anything to do with me, not because of anything special about their conversation, but it became burned into my mind because in that moment, I suddenly transformed. I transformed into this curmudgeonly, bitter old lady who was like, content creator, yeah, let's just see. Let's see how you're going to make it big and get rich being a content creator. Awesome future career aspiration, getting a loft in New York City and having all these parties. Do you have any idea how much that costs? Yeah, good luck with that. And so my age, my biases, my life experience, my bitterness, it was all here. Fortunately, in my head, I have not yet lost that filter. So none of this was shared with this group. I just let them ride out their high and their weekend and enjoy life. That was fine. But this, my dear podcaster, is not a story about life in your 20s versus life in your 40s. This is not even a story about the Big Apple. This is a story about the problem with the word content for you as a podcaster. The problem with the word content is it's like saying, I'm trying to fill a container. The contents of this container are X. I'm trying to fill a space, a void with stuff, with content. The contents of this pillow are polyfill fiber, 100% polyfill fiber. Wah, wah. Nobody needs more polyfill fiber in their life, unless you are making inexpensive decorative throw pillows. The point is that in this current climate, in the podcasting industry, not even in the podcast industry, because I don't think that I necessarily serve the podcast industry. I serve business owners, thought leaders in their respective niches, in their industries, in their fields, in their organizations to use the medium of podcasting towards whatever their higher purpose or goal is. So it's not the industry that I'm feeding of podcasting. It is those creative individuals who want to use the medium, to use the platform, to use this online space to make a positive difference. This whole space, the industry, the medium, the platform, whatever angle you're coming to it from, is getting more competitive day by day. I mean, you could probably say that about just about any industry or niche, but I see it because I'm right here in podcasting with you. Gone are the days where you could be the first woman to launch a small business advice podcast and then right away shoot to the top of the Apple charts because you are literally the first and the only podcast in that particular niche. That was a thing many years ago. It's not now. It is not a record it, publish it on Apple Podcasts or, God forbid, Spotify, and they will come. It is not that. It is not make an audiogram, post it on Instagram, and suddenly you're going to double your podcast listenership. That is not the game that we are playing right now. And I would say that if you are into creating a podcast, probably for any purpose. Like, it's different if you're creating a podcast to gain a large audience to be able to sell advertising and get sponsors. That's one game. It's different if you're using a podcast to promote a business, a product, or a service that you have. That's another game. It's different if you're using a podcast as an educational and community building outreach arm of your nonprofit organization. That's another game. There's all these different games and these different ways that you can use the medium that have nothing to do with the industry necessarily of podcasting for good, for you, for your purposes, that you can use this platform to create these genuine, intimate, meaningful conversations with your listeners. Even if they're just listening and they're not actually talking back to you, you are creating meaningful change in their life. You are providing them something that they don't get anywhere else. However, they need to be able to find you. And once they find you, you need to be able to capture and hold their attention long enough to build that relationship. They don't have a relationship with you the first 3 words that come out of your mouth, unless they knew you previously, which, a lot of our listeners do know us. And then a lot of our listeners don't. They just know what they hear on the podcast, and they build that parasocial relationship with you episode after episode after episode, time and time and time and time and time and time goes by. That relationship gets deeper. That connection is more meaningful, and their connection to your brand becomes stronger and stronger, but it takes time. I think I'm going on a tangent right here. That's fine. Let me check my notes. Podcast Angels are those products, services, experiences, things that you can implement into your podcasting experience as a creator, not a content creator, a creator, that make your enjoyment of what you're doing, that make your process so much more effective. And this episode's Podcast Angel is coming up oh so quickly. The next Podcast Envy Masterclass, How to Grow Your Podcast Like a Social Media Influencer, with me and Lauren Ramsey from Betsy Bash, Thursday, June 29th at 11 a.m. Central. You can get the link to sign up in the show notes for this episode, and that is thecreativeimposter.com/masterclasses. So if you go to thecreativeimposter.com/masterclasses and then on Eventbrite, use the promo code VIP Invite. VIP Invite is going to give you 50% off your masterclass seat. And the greatest part about this is that you will be able to send in your questions ahead of time so that we are sure to answer them during the class. And then we'll have a Q&A period. So if any new questions have come up in that moment, you'll be able to ask them live and we'll be able to work through them with you. And this was actually requested by a client we were working with on her show during the Creative Bash, which is a service where you get not just my podcasting brain, you also get Lauren's social media brain on your content to see how you can better sync your social and your show. So she was saying that using social media is fine, but like thinking about how to use it more strategically. I don't know if you know this, but successful influencers don't just like throw spaghetti at the wall necessarily and post whatever. They know what works. They know what generates new followers. They know what gets engagement. And that's what they use. And so this is what we're digging into the mindset of how to use your social media more strategically in a way that is still aligned with you, your personality, and your brand. And so that, once again, is Thursday, June 29th at 11 a.m. Central on Zoom. You can participate from anywhere. And the link to sign up is thecreativeimposter.com teachable.com/masterclasses, promo code VIP invite for 50% off. See you there. So basically what I was saying is gone are the days where you could be a super successful, creative, independent podcast creator who does not have a major media network behind you, like, I don't know, Spotify, like Amazon, like Audible, which is Amazon, like Condé Nast. Does Condé Nast have podcasts? I don't even know. But some kind of media network behind you that has advertising dollars, that has an entire team, that has social media people who just promote the heck out of your show. And all you have to do is show up, make your show, and make it something that people want to come back to over and over again. Those days are gone where you can be that indie creator and learn as you go and be able to reasonably and reliably, with effort and creativity and a little bit of luck, get the visibility that you need to have a massive influx of followers and listeners drop into your show. This is no longer reality for us indie creators. And notice I didn't say the other word, the other C word in this moment, because in my humble opinion, from what I have seen over 7 years in this space, content for the sake of content is not going to cut it. And you know what I mean when I say content for the sake of content. I've got to get an episode out. My guest canceled. What am I going to do? What is this episode going to be about? We could talk about this. We could talk about that. We could talk about this. We'd have this person on the show. I got to record something. I have to take that recording and chop it up into content for social media. I need more content for TikTok. I need more content for my LinkedIn newsletter. Content. What we need to be looking at right now in order to differentiate your show, in order to make your podcast something that stands out from the rest, that makes your show the one of many, many, many choices your ideal listener has to choose from, is that your podcast needs to be not just a source of great quality information. Your podcast does not just need to be a casual conversation with a compelling guest. Your podcast must also fill another purpose in the context of your listener's day. And it is most likely that if you have been listening to Podcast Envy at all over the past couple of months, you already know what that purpose is. And that purpose generally has something to do with entertainment. Your show should be entertaining. And if you're saying, well, I have an advice show where I help people with their problems, I'm helping people. Do I really need to think about being entertaining while I'm helping people? Yes, because if you do it in an entertaining way, people will listen more closely and be able to digest that information and embody it and take it into the cells of their being if it is entertaining. I've heard it said that humans are creatures of story. When we hear a story about something, we are much more likely to learn it than if we are given a PowerPoint presentation or a Google Slides presentation with bullet points. Am I right? Or am I right? For your listener, you could be filling some kind of void for them. And in that case, it should be the thing that makes them feel better when they're lost or confused or feeling alone. It's the show that makes them feel confident when they need to make a big decision about something specific that you can help them make that big decision with, even if you don't know what big decision it is that they are actually making. The reason they are going to choose your show for that purpose is not the quality of the information. It's not even the content. The reason they are going to choose your show above all others is production value. What? Also not what you were expecting me to say. All right, production value. You may or may not know this about me, but I come from a theater background. I also have a music and singing background, and I also have dabbled in film production. That's what I studied in college, film and video and broadcast media. And in all of these arenas, all of these creative pursuits, creative, generative, and in many cases, media making pursuits, production value is a thing that we study and comes into play. People describe production value in a lot of different ways and include or don't include certain things into that just based on their perspective, I guess. I don't know, because I even thought to myself, let me look up a few definitions of production value. And in some cases, the definitions that I found are it is everything technical on a stage during a play. So it's not necessarily the actors or the script even or the director, but it is the lighting. It is the sets. It is the costumes. It is if there's any kind of sound cues or special effects like fog or anything like that. It's the props. It's all of those things that goes into the world, the experience of the play. The content, if you will, is the story. The content is the script. The content are the lines that are coming out of the performers' mouths. That's the content. And yes, bad content, bad story, bad scripting, bad writing, that can severely affect a show. And you could have very high, expensive, high budget production value. It could look beautiful and the content could still be crap. And some people are going to be like, oh my God, that was the worst script ever. What was even the story? And some people are still going to be wrapped up in the experience. I definitely had this experience in New York. Look, maybe this is a podcast about New York. One of my first experiences in New York City, I believe it was when I was there to perform in the New York Fringe Festival. I was staying with a friend who lived there. And she was like, we need to go see something on Broadway. And I was like, maybe this or this. And she was like, no, we need to see something that is spectacle. We need to see something that is so entertaining and just fluffy and beautiful. Big Broadway. We need to see big Broadway. And so she picked, oh gosh, why is it? Oh, she picked Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bombay Dreams. Have you ever heard of it? A lot of people have never heard of this show. Why? Because the show itself wasn't very good. The script wasn't great. The songs they weren't earwormy the way that other Broadway songs can be. So they didn't really stick in your mind. The characters weren't well developed. You know, that part of it was kind of flat. But Bombay Dreams was set in India. And the sets and the costumes were like colorful and flowy fabrics. And at the end of the first act before the intermission, a giant water fountain emerged from the stage and water was spraying everywhere while the dancers in their colorful saris and silks were swirling and swirling and swirling around. And I was like, this is the most incredible thing ever. I can't remember the name of the characters. I can't remember what happened. It was some kind of love story. I don't know. But that scene is forever burned into my mind as this really incredible experience. So that was production value. That had nothing to do with the content. That was production value. Don't get me wrong. I am not suggesting that you don't take care into the content that is in your show. I am not suggesting that you don't think about what it is that you're saying, that you don't think about how you script things, that you don't think about language, that you don't think about conversations, that you don't think about guests, that you don't think about what is actually being said or shared in your show. Of course, that is so important. I think that you probably already do a pretty good job about that. What I am saying is, where can you increase the production value? And that is the elements that go into the experience that your audience is having in that moment when they are listening to your show. So if you have ever gone to a play versus a reading of a new play, a reading of a new script, where actors have the script, it's new, and they are reading the script, but there's no costumes, there's no lighting, there's no sets, there's no props or whatever. It can still be a valuable experience. You can still have a great play, a great story. It can still be well acted by the actors, but the overall packaging of the experience of the full play, that's what we want. We don't want a reading. We want the whole experience. So you might be thinking, well, how does this apply to podcasting? Because basically you're doing a reading. You're just sitting here and you're reading your script or you're reading your notes and it's just words coming out of your mouth. Like there's no production value here. Wrong. That is not the case. In podcasting, production value can come from so many different places. It is the technology. What is the audio quality as the listener is listening? Are you using equipment and using it in such a way that their listening experience is going to be high? How is the show being edited? Do you have an editor, or are you yourself editing the content so that it can be followed and digested easily and be a wonderful experience for your listener to consume without them having to do too much work or leap through obstacles or draw conclusions on their own? Are you including music? In this live stream, I'm not including music, but in the episode itself, there will be the theme music. There will be music for the Angel section. The podcast Angel section is where I give you a promo for something that I think you could add to your podcasting experience that is going to make it more amazing and that helps sustain me, this show, and my business. So there's music for the Angel. Then if I include another special feature, like I've been including special features for social media tips with Lauren Ramsey from Betsy Bash, my collaborator on a service that we call the Creative Bash, well, that has its own music that I've selected. So that can be part of your production value. Also, the way you deliver the content. Some people are going to argue that that's not really production value. I disagree. I think that intentionally including humor, intentionally including stories and examples to illustrate a point, I think the way you use your voice as the podcaster, all of that to me, if I were auditing your show, if I were assessing your show, I would be listening for how you show up on the mic, how you use your voice, how you illustrate your points, how you help your listener to take in the experience of your show in a way that is entertaining, in a way that resonates with them, in a way that helps them utilize this energy, utilize this information, utilize what it is that you are trying to share with them or teach them or offer them, how to make it really soak into their pores and stick with them. That is all part of podcast production value, in my opinion. So again, the difference between having a reading of the script, a reading of what it is that you want to share, a reading of the content, and a fully staged, fully realized play with the sets and the lights and the costumes, that is what turns content, even good content, into magic, into life-changing moments and emotional breakthroughs for your audience. And if your podcast is not doing that for your audience, you're missing a golden opportunity, and your show likely fades into the background. Maybe they follow your show and the new episodes show up in their queue every week or every other week, but it's not the first one they click on. And maybe 3 days later, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen to Podcast Envy. And then they choose something else, or they go watch Netflix. Does Netflix call their shows content? Do you watch content on Netflix? Even those sad little documentaries that Netflix loves to pop out that they don't even call those, you know what I mean? The sad documentaries, the ones that aren't that good, the ones that aren't that in depth, where it's like primetime television back when we were doing the whole network broadcast thing, where it's pretty inexpensive to produce. You feel like you're learning something, but it's just fluff. They don't call those content. They call those documentaries. They call those shows. So why are we calling what we're creating content? I don't want your episodes to be the ones that people see in their feed or in the app or on social media, and they are like, I should probably listen to that. But they don't, because it's just more content. Nobody needs more polyfill fiber. All right. Maybe you're thinking, you know what, Andrea, production value, I don't know. I'm not a producer. I'm not a theater person. I'm not an actor. I'm not a media mogul. What does production value even mean? How do I put this into my show? Is this really something? I'm a coach. I'm a consultant. I'm a service provider. I'm a small business owner. I'm a therapist. I don't have a big budget. Production value does not necessarily require a big budget. You do not need to spend hundreds of dollars licensing a song off the radio. You do not even need to spend $1,000 on your podcasting gear setup. You do not necessarily need to have some kind of splashy video that you're posting online. There are other more cost-effective ways to think about production value and to explore how you can authentically implement these elements into your show to create an entertaining and enjoyable experience to go along with the educational content that you are providing. And this thinking, this exploration, these ways of crafting the message that you are going to share, this is what elevates your podcast from content to a show. And the best news is that if you want help crafting life-changing moments and emotional breakthroughs for your audience, I can help. I have a brand new podcast coaching program that I would love to invite you to check out. It's called Light Up Your Mic, and the next round begins August 2023 for 3 to 5 lucky podcasters. This is a hybrid group and one-on-one coaching experience with the bonus of a private podcast feed just for you, so you can have my voice in your ears, helping you along the way to find your light, what makes you stand out, and helps you to differentiate your show through production value. We'll focus on the avenues, assets, and resources that are available to you, as well as your own natural skills and talents. What makes you shine brightly like a star for the benefit of your audience through the medium of your podcast. Light Up Your Mic includes tools for finding clarity on your questions, intentions, and vision, a full audit of your show in alignment with your intentions to uncover your star qualities and opportunities to turn up the dial on your starlight, group cohort coaching with me, a one-on-one conversation with me, your very own Light Up Your Mic private podcast feed, and bonus access to audio masterclasses on social media, voice, values-based messaging, hosting skills, and more. To learn more and save your spot, visit thecreativeimposter.com/lightupyourmic or click the link conveniently located for you in the show notes. All right, the C word versus the P word. Content versus production value. What do you think? Are you ready? Are you ready to shift your show from just being more polyfill fiber to being the first show your listener clicks on in the morning when they wake up and see a new episode in their listening queue? I'd love to hear from you. Reach out and let me know how you're adding production value to your show. You can email me, Andrea@thecreativeimposter.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know that you're a listener of Podcast Envy. Oh, and hey, you might have heard me mention earlier in the episode that this was originally a live stream. Yeah, I've been recording episodes that way, and it's been pretty fun. So if you are on LinkedIn, be sure to follow me, and you'll find out when the very next live stream is coming your way. Whether it's LinkedIn, email, the next Podcast Envy Masterclass, or Light Up Your Mic, I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.